Well, from my point of view, the common ground was established when the webcasters suggested the Copyright Royalty Board take this on, and a year and a half of effort, energy, time, money, testimony, people like myself who put probably a week and a half of work into providing the testimony they asked for, showing up. I thought that was the common ground. And I thought that was the procedure. And so I find us in a very awkward place that once a decision was made through a process that everyone agreed on, we're still discussing. And I think it's generous of Sound Exchange at that point to yet be open to hearing more information and offer a compromise that is insanely fair. I think that, I agree with you. Congress really shouldn't be doing this right now because I think it's been done, and I think they have come to the table, and I think they have made a fair offer.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, if I could turn to you at this point. You had mentioned in your testimony about you termed it homogenization of radio out there, fewer, perhaps a more limited type of listening that the listenership can hear, other than perhaps, as you mentioned, in the new webcast. Could you discuss that a little bit more detail?
As far as the
role that you all play in that and in fighting that right. Reality.
Broadcast radio is confined by limited space on the dial. So there can only be so many FM radio stations in any one market, so you're therefore going to be limited by the programming you can put on those channels. The Internet really opens it up to an unlimited number of channels. You can have as many channels as you want, and in fact, some Internet radio services actually serve a customized channel for each and every listener. And I had mentioned earlier the $500 per channel minimum, which is a really difficult provision of the CRB ruling. That would definitely be difficult. But I think it's the great thing about the Internet is it opens up so much for everyone, and there's so many different kinds of musicians and that can thrive by finding a home on the Internet that they never otherwise could. So, and obviously those artists should be compensated. We paid over $32,000 in royalties to Sound Exchange in 2005. So I think we all agree that artists should be compensated. But under this, Waxy.com would have been out of business under the new rates.
Mr. Eisworth, let me turn to you if I can. Would you tell us again, elaborate on what role WVXU and WGUC play in a community like ours, Cincinnati, which is probably not unlike the role that some of the other stations of that type play in their communities around the country, and what this decision, how this royalty board's decision impacts the role that WGUC and WVXU play in our community.
Thank you, sir. WVXU and WGUC in Cincinnati play the typical role that public radio stations do in other markets, in that we provide services that the mainstream commercial media tend to overlook. WVXU is primarily a news and public information resource, a member of National Public Radio. We broadcast national news programming and local news programming. We have one of the largest local news staffs in operation in the media in Cincinnati. WGUC is one of a disturbingly shrinking cadre of stations that devotes full time to classical music. As you may know, commercial and non-commercial classical music stations in this country have been taking the role or the path of the dinosaur of late. It's because owners or operators have found more lucrative ways to make money with other formats. What we are using the Internet for is to fill in those gaps where classical radio, specifically regarding WGUC, is no longer available, or in markets where there may be some classical music but not enough to provide any variety. We have a great relationship with our local AFM number 1, and we provide and pay fees for broadcasts of, as I mentioned, local classical performances throughout the year. The important, significant difference that we're trying to stress here that is true not only for WGUC but also through public radio stations in big cities and small and rural communities across the country on Indian reservations is that we have first and foremost a public service mission. We're not in this business to make money. We're not beholden to stockholders. We don't have to work on creating a positive bottom line that we can dole out in benefits or increased revenues to our shareholders. That's not to say that the commercial broadcasters don't do their job. They do. But our reason for being is dramatically different. They're in the business to make money. We're in the business to provide a public service. The fact is that the CRB did not include everybody at the table. They completely overlooked the basic mission difference between commercial broadcasters and public broadcasters. They have tried to include us in league with the commercial broadcast mission and finance mechanism, and it's trying to, unfortunately, fit a round peg in a square hole. Public radio exists to serve unserved audiences. We support musicians, and indeed, as with Internet radio, a lot of musicians who would find no other home in commercial radio find their homes on public radio. The CRB decision offers a tremendous threat to the future of our Internet activities, and long term, we think, to the ability public radio has to serve the interests and needs congressionally mandated of the citizens of this country.
Thank you very much. And, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Chabot. The chair has asked me to chair in her absence, and I believe I was next with my questions. I want to ask Mr. Alcorn, your music gets played by a lot of webcasters, correct?
Right.
And I guess many of the biggest webcasters play your music.
Right.
AOL, Clear Channel Online, Live 365, RL Select, and Yahoo Music Launchcast, among others. Correct?
Correct, right.
And do you have, and of course you get played by some of the smaller webcasters as well.
We get a lot more play on the small webcasters because they cater to a niche market. You know,
when you say you get a lot more play, you get a lot more spins of the
yes,
music.
correct.
But yet the audience that a smaller webcaster would reach would probably not be as large as one of the large webcasters, correct?
It would depend, probably not. It just depends on how many people are looking for that specific type of music.
Or perhaps even some of the smaller webcasters may have picked up your work by demand from some of the larger webcasters.
Could be.
And so really you would have to say that your popularity would be due to large and small webcasters.
Yes, I would give credit to both because it's just, there's like Ram Radio, which is specifically targeted to traditional and alternative underground country of today. And their slogan is they play yesterday's legends with today's up-and-coming artists. And, you know, and you have stations on Yahoo and AOL that do the same thing. But they are not, you know, specifically targeted as the smaller ones.
Certainly. Well, I guess probably the point that I would want to make on that is that artists such as yourself benefit from exposure by the large, or say those who pay 95% of the royalties would be in part responsible for your success. And you are here to say that there should not be, you're here to look after the interest of that other 5%, the small webcasters? Or are you?
I'm here for the interest of an artist. It doesn't matter if they're on a large webcast or a small webcast.
All right, point well made.
Right.
And Mr. Miller, your firm, your radio, your web station was just purchased?
Last October, yes.
It was who was the purchaser, by the way?
Lala Media.
Lala Media. And now,